It's another Football Friday on News OK Live. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, here with our Football Friday gang, our OU beat writer, Jason Kersey. How's it going, Jason?
Great.
Columnist Jenny Carlson.
Who in the world?
Hello.
Your fingers
And OSU beat writer, Kyle Fredrickson.
Good to be here.
Good to be here. Listen, things look a little different today. Of course, we are not in the News OK studios because it's in the process of being moved. The Oklahoman is moving from our home out here on 9000 North Broadway, where we've been 20-some years. We're moving back downtown. A week from Monday coming up, we'll be back downtown, right across the street from the Colcord, right across the street from the Cox Center, just a couple blocks north of the Chesapeake Energy Arena, right in the heart of downtown. And our studio then will be front and center. We'll be doing this in front of, the hustle and bustle of downtown. It's going to be great. We'll be broadcasting on the big wraparound screen out front. So just looking forward to that. In the meantime, we're doing it from my desk today, guys, and the topic du jour really is stadium renovations. Jason, you reported on that from the Regents meeting in Lawton, where OU Regents were meeting. President Boren had a lot to say about that. A report from Sooner Scoop that the project had been delayed. Barry Chandler wrote about that in his column today, saying it's eventually, with Boren talking about it's eventually going to get done. Really market conditions driving the thing here. Oil prices have been slashed in half. A lot of changes, a lot of negative impact to the Oklahoma economy, other impacts on other economies too. But Jason, what was your biggest takeaway from what you got from David Boren, what you've read, and what you saw, what David Boren said to Barry yesterday?
Well, like you said, it's just obvious that the oil prices are a big problem. I mean, when they approved this stadium plan in June, oil was selling for $110 or $15 a barrel, and now it's less than half of that today. And people have, these oil men who are Oklahoma's big donors have lost a lot of their net worth, and they've lost a lot of the money that they would otherwise donate to OU. So it's sort of affected all areas of fundraising for the university at this point. So a lot of people are also pointing to the fact that the season was so disappointing, and I think that probably played some role in it, a little bit of the donations not going so well. But I think mostly it's this, because at the end of the day, if you're a rich guy with a lot of money to spend, and you're also a big OU supporter, and you see the season last year, how it went, I would think that'd make you want to spend money to update things and get better recruits and improve things if you love the university. So to me, I think the biggest problem is the oil price.
Jenny, we had a bad feeling about this, though, leaving the Sooners bowl situation, that devastating loss to Clemson. The dismissal of two offensive coaches, the uncertainty around some other coaching situations still yet. Signing day looms. And then came the oil prices, price of oil barrel really cut in half. Do you think, though, that this is going to have a negative impact come signing day? I mean, the news of this comes out a week before signing day. What impact do you think this will have on recruits?
Well, I mean, I think it could have some impact on recruiting, but I think it's important to remember that, it's not like Oklahoma has facilities that are, in horrible shape. I mean, they do have some pretty updated facilities. The most out-of-date facilities at the stadium would be the press box area, and so it affects us. I'm not sure that has any bearing on recruits. And I know that they would like to get a more updated weight room, which is obviously something recruits look at, but it's not like they have a terrible one. They have some pretty good weight and conditioning facilities. And then I think it's important to remember, when it comes to recruits and things that are important to them, something like Headington Hall is really above and beyond what you see at a lot of other places. So when you talk about, the stadium that they would be playing in, the field they'd be playing in, the locker room where they'd be spending time, the residence hall where they'd be spending a lot of time, a lot of those facilities that a recruit would see, would be as good as anywhere. So, I'm sure it does give a little bit of a little bit of a pall as recruiting winds down and signing day looms, but I can't imagine it's going to cause much in the way of defections or decisions to be made about OU yay or nay, depending on that topic of how long it's going to take the stadium renovations to come together.
When we start dating ourselves when we talk about stadium renovations, of course, I remember in 2003 when OU's end zones were changed, and I remember the big changes, the Switzer Center in 2003, when that stadium opened and how much it was lauded for the improvements, really spurred on by the national championship of 2000. But lo and behold, that's 12 years ago, and it is time for some updating of the stadiums. And then since then, Oklahoma State's extreme home makeover of Boone Pickens Stadium, the former Lewis Field, really is setting the standard here in the state for amenities for players. And Kyle, as we shift to you, we're talking about changes. Is the paint has not even dried on some of those OSU amenities and improvements, and yet the way things go, there's always this need for more and more and more. We wrote about this, of course, in our football preview 2 years ago when we looked at the SEC-opoly and the facilities race. How does OSU stand on its facilities right now? Are they standing pat and they feeling pretty good about it?
I think they have to feel pretty good about where they stand on facilities, and talking with different recruits throughout this recruiting season about what their official visits have been like. The one constant every single time is, wow, I've never seen a building like that, or I've never seen a weight room like that. So I think that they're pretty good. I think part of the key in staying ahead in this kind of arms race of facilities is kind of knowing what else needs to get taken care of and being on top of that. For OSU, though, I think the focus right now is kind of shifted to baseball. Back when OSU had its Tulsa Cowboy Caravan, Mike Holder fielded a few questions about the new baseball facility, and they're in a stage where I think they're past the planning phase. They're really just looking for donations. So I think football is where they want to be. I mean, if you've seen that Sherman E. Smith Training Center, their indoor practice facility, just really incredible building with what they're able to do to kind of simulate different weather environments, whether they want to open up all the doors and let the weather come in, or if they want to create their own climate inside. Really gives those commits and recruits a practice experience that they certainly didn't have at high school. OSU, considering and looking what's happening with OU right now, they've got to be pretty thankful that they've got all their stuff taken care of and they're already on that next level.
On the next level, of course, and without being affected by the price of oil, Boone Pickens has given all of his money. That hay is in the barn. He is, of course, one of the front lines people who is affected by oil prices. Jason, last word on this stadium renovation thing. As you think about it, what is the big thing that OU football wants to fix? The most important thing out of all these renovations that are scheduled, what's the top of the to-do list?
Well, I think they really want to upgrade the weight room. I feel like, I think Bob Stoops has felt like they've sort of fallen behind when it comes to the facilities, the weight room facilities. The other thing I think that's vital, that's really important from at least an administrative standpoint, is the fan amenities. There's people, OU now has to compete on Saturdays with people's big screen TVs, and for a lot of people, for a lot of OU fans, I think they may be deciding that it's easier, it's less of a hassle just to stay home and watch it on the TV. You don't have to worry about squeezing into your seat. You don't have to worry about fighting traffic or finding a parking place or anything like that. And I think that the challenge for OU is to find a way to make it appealing to still come to the game. And they're not going to have a problem selling out the stadium, at least for the next couple of years. But eventually, I think they're worried that they might get to a point where a lot of people are just going to decide to stay home.
Guys, it's time for a little bit of a sneak peek at our lead up to signing day coverage. You've already had some really good stories. Kyle wrote about the search for a frontline running back for Oklahoma State and how that really looks different since the Bedlam win and since the bowl game. Jason, just the other day you wrote about who the next big OU kicker could be and whether this can be a kicker who can make a big kick. I was startled to see that, game-winning kicks just haven't been made, and very few have been available to OU kickers. But of course, we saw what happened to Michael Honeycutt and his struggles and how they impacted the team. So that was a really good one. But coming up on Sunday, you guys are working on a package about the importance of Oklahoma players to Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And Kyle, the Cowboys in particular, don't have a lot of commitments from Oklahoma players right now. What's your sense of where they're prioritizing the recruitment of state players?
Well, it's an interesting topic because I think a lot of people within the state would like to see, the state universities, OU and OSU, going after these guys a little bit more, trying to keep it more close to home. It's not as if the landscape of high school football in the state is that weak. There's powerhouses in a number of different places, in the Oklahoma City metro and out in Tulsa. But you're talking about a numbers game in recruiting. And when we look at what Mike Gundy and the staff has done in the past 10 years. I talked to Pat Jones on the phone yesterday, and he said that one of the biggest credits to Gundy's tenure in Stillwater so far is just how hard he's hit Texas in recruiting because, like I had said earlier and what Jones had said, it's a numbers game. For every Jenks and Union and Cassidy, all these programs that have, consistently produced top quality recruits, there's dozens of them, per capita when we're talking about the Dallas-Fort Worth area and the Houston area. So, you can go down to Texas and see 8 or 10 guys you might be interested in a weekend, as opposed to, going out to Jenks or going out to Union and seeing maybe 1 or 2 guys that you're interested in. So, you can't erase the idea that, Texas is where, you can't just say Texas where it's at, Oklahoma doesn't have the talent we're looking for, because the Cowboys are in on these guys. When we talk about Jalen Barnett, Josh Waraboko, all these guys who might be kind of considered a big fish in little pond, OSU has offered those guys. They recruit those guys. Now, whether or not they land them, that's becomes a more complex issue. But it's not as if OSU isn't targeting these guys. But when you go down to Texas and you're able to go to some of these smaller schools where they have these freakish athletes who aren't really being recruited that heavily, there's just a lot to like there. And the Cowboys have been successful. You talk about James Washington, a guy who went to a 2A high school in nowhere, Texas, just this last year. That was a guy the Cowboys were able to identify. There wasn't as much recruiting pressure on him because Texas is so large, and they feel like they can have a lot of success. But at the same time, we'd be remiss to say that Oklahoma doesn't produce some pretty quality talent with, obviously Brandon Whedon and Justin Blackman, and even guys on the roster they have now with David Glidden, Kevin Peterson. We're talking about guys who are staples of the program who are also homegrown, and they take a lot of pride in that. So it's a complex issue. At the end of the day, I think OSU has done a good job of recruiting those in-state guys. It's like I said, it's not like they're ignoring some of the top talent in the state, but considering everything that is down south and all the success they've had, they'd be remiss not to really attack Texas hard, and they certainly have.
That's an interesting point, Kyle. One of the things is, used to be when Oklahoma State didn't or finished second to OU on some of these state stars, that the recruiting season for the Cowboys was considered a failure or subpar, and now while they're still recruiting these top Oklahoma players, they just go down and get reap a good harvest in Texas and stay competitive. No way was Oklahoma State recruiting in Texas to that extent when even Pat Jones was there, or even Les Miles. He had some success in Texas, but not to the limits of Mike Gundy. So really, in some ways, that puts the importance of having Oklahoma players in some context. But Jason, there's another. There's the Oklahoma dividend, which is really sort of our assignment on this story. What kind of dividend does OU, specifically from your case, get when it recruits state players, and what could it get?
Yeah, well, I think you look at the team right now. You have the two of the starting linebackers are Oklahoma kids. The last two Heisman Trophy winners for OU have been Oklahoma-grown quarterbacks. Gerald McCoy was an Oklahoma kid. So obviously there's a lot that you can get from recruiting in-state kids, particularly kids that grew up wanting to play for OU, that grew up dreaming of being Sooners or dreaming of being Cowboys. But one thing that I think is interesting is that it seems like a lot of times OU and even to maybe some extent OSU as well sometimes takes these Oklahoma kids for granted. They don't offer them until really late in the process. I think you saw that with Dominique Alexander and Jordan Evans, the linebackers I mentioned earlier. They were offered after OU had struck out on a lot of their other linebacker targets, and those two kids weren't even really linebackers in high school, or at least their entire career. Kevin Peterson at Oklahoma State, he for both teams, and OU offered him, and he committed, and then he flipped to OSU once they offered. So Dahu Green from Westmore, the receiver that OU just offered this week, has had offers from a lot of people around the country. And OU's just now getting in on him when they struck out on some other receivers that they wanted. So I think that might be a problem, or at least I think some coaches might have a problem with that.
Jason, what's the Sooners' chances of getting Dahu Green?
I think they're pretty good. He's going to take a visit this weekend to official visit to Norman. He was committed to Louisville, and then he was committed to Washington State. I mean, I think they've got a good chance, but I guess we'll just have to see. We'll have to see whether the fact that they waited so long is going to hurt them.
And Jenny, you are writing about Josh Weraboko, the Cassidy lineman that is entertaining offers from UCLA, Ohio State, and OU. He's put off his decision a couple times. He was going to announce at the Army All-American game, and now is going to decide Wednesday and announce Wednesday. And you went out and talked to him yesterday. This is a guy that's very interesting. And how important do you think he is to the Sooners recruiting class?
Well, I think anytime you can get the top guy in the state to commit, it's a big deal. And from all accounts, it looks like Weraboko's a legitimate future force on the offensive line. Plays left tackle. I guess it's an assumption that he'll stay at that position, and anytime you can get one of the best in the country who just happens to be a local kid to come and potentially be a future anchor on the offensive line, I mean, I think that could be a huge deal for Oklahoma. If you're Oklahoma and you recruit nationally, you still don't want to lose a local guy who's a national recruit. I think there's something to be said for being able to keep the best at home. So, I think it's maybe not a deal breaker sort of situation for Oklahoma. It's not like if they don't get Josh Weraboko, the class will be considered, a failure or whatever. But I think when you're a national power type of program like Oklahoma, I think getting guys who are local to stay local is a big deal. I think it's a notch in the belt. His parents are both Oklahoma grads, so there's some family ties there too. So we'll see. I didn't ask him about it. That's not really the focus of what I'm working on, and he's being asked by a lot of other people about it. I didn't expect he would just offer up the information to me, so no reason to really dive into that. He's made it pretty clear he's going to save that decision for signing day. So I don't know where he's going to go, but he seems like the type of guy, personality-wise, who, it could be a character type of guy to build around in the locker room and those sorts of things. So I would think Oklahoma or anybody that's going after him and is offered would really like to see him put on their hat or sign their letter or do whatever he's going to do on Wednesday, because he does seem like a guy who could be a pretty big impact down the road.
Guys, that's clearly one of the big storylines, suspense points for us Wednesday. Jenny, of course, will be doing video from News OK studios, wherever they may be, on on signing day. You guys will be out covering lots of signing day. So the Josh Weraboko story is, one of the big. It's one of the big dramas for Oklahoma high school sports. Excuse me. Likewise for the Sooners. Kyle, bail me out here. I'm joking. What's the big cliffhanger for the Cowboys on signing day?
Well, it remains running back, and it's something that we've discussed at length here, and I've written about as well. But we're less than a week away here, and the Cowboys don't have a true running back in this class. And considering what they have coming back and what they lost, it's a big area of concern right now. You've got Rennie Childs and Sione Palele, a redshirt freshman who'll get his first shot this upcoming season. But beyond that, there's not much depth. So the Cowboys are going to have a couple options. They could look out and get Chris Warren. He's a senior at Rockwell High School, a four-star guy who's very highly touted. He's actually going on his visit to Washington this weekend. His dad, Chris Warren Sr., played for Seattle in the NFL. He has a lot of family ties up there, so you figure they have a good shot. But he's also made an official visit to OSU, and with the lure of playing time right away, that might be a guy who could fit into the mix. Or the Cowboys are going to go ahead and try to flip some guys who've already verbally committed, like I had written this week. One guy who's really been at the top of their list is Chris Carson out of Butler Community College in Kansas, Georgia commit who recently told some Atlanta media that right now he's 70 to 80% still on Georgia, so there's still a chance he could end up being a Cowboy. But when we look at this running back picture, if you want any evidence that the Cowboys are scrambling a little bit, just late last night, a running back from Maryland, three-star Devontae, blanking on the last name here.
Did you say Maryland?
Yeah, from Maryland.
Be still my heart.
Yeah, Devontae Williams. Sorry about that, brain fart there. He's a three-star guy who's
Sherm got choked up early. He knew it was coming. He got choked up because of the Maryland ties.
Well, Sherm, if this guy wants an opportunity to play in a power conference, this might be a good steal for the Cowboys. He's a Marshall commit. He's got a lot of mid-major offers, kind of some lower D1s. His Rivals page says that he's visiting Indiana this weekend. So a guy who would seemingly not be on the Cowboys' radar whatsoever, just a month ago, suddenly becomes someone that they offer, is this kid tweeted out late last night. So, it's clear that they're willing to go after some of these mid-major commits, to kind of see if they'd be lured by playing time at a big school, and hopefully the Cowboys can get a steal. And clearly they're willing to go to great lengths to get somebody, all the way out in Maryland, not necessarily a key recruiting ground for the Cavs.
I resemble that comment. So does the state of Maryland. Not exactly a key recruiting ground, but
Tavon Austin's from Maryland.
That's right. Sing it loud, brother. Hey, listen, Jason. Let's go to you. You close us out. What's other than Weraboko? What's the big cliffhanger for the Sooners on signing day?
Well, I think the big thing is be able to get any more linebackers. I think that's the question that's going to determine a lot of things. It might determine whether how good OU's defense is next year. It's going to determine how deep the linebacker corps are. And it's probably going to determine whether Tim Kish has a job in about 2 weeks. So, I think that's something that's really going to be interesting to watch. They've got a few guys that they're still after. They're bringing in a linebacker, a four-star guy from New Orleans, Arthur McGinnis, this weekend to visit, so they kind of get the last shot with him, and I think they feel good about that. The thing about that is, though, they're competing against Arizona and Texas Tech for Arthur McGinnis, and that's a battle OU should win. OU should be able to win Texas Tech, and especially for a position where there's immediate playing time on the table. And if they can't do that, then I think they have to make a change at that position at that position on the coaching staff. So that's going to be really interesting to follow for me anyway.
Thanks, Jason. Well, listen, guys, that's all for this edition of Football Fridays on News OK Live, but you can stay with the best coverage team every day at News OK and every morning in the Oklahoman. Enjoy your weekend.
See you guys.
See you.